No intro on this one. I wanted to do a short message type podcast. I've been doing some thinking on this podcast and where I am now. Obviously, I haven't spent the time that I wanted to spend on it to get the technique down, to kind of find my rhythm. I could definitely say it's not as easy as I thought it would be. And for me, I thought since I'm a talker, it would be easy since it involves talking. But what I've noticed that I guess when it really comes out and when I feel more comfortable is when I'm talking with someone else. When I'm talking with a group of guys or just one guy, we're talking about sports or we're giving our take on something. I think we usually have conversations that probably would be worthy of recording and putting out there in the form of a podcast. But I've only been able to talk to myself here. And my goal since the beginning was to do podcasts, do sit downs with people about certain topics, and I haven't been able, not been able to do that. One thing I noticed is that I haven't been as comfortable doing the podcast because when I'm sitting down here, I'm taking this like a kind of like a job where I'm trying to be a little bit too professional, maybe, and the reason is because I'm trying to show some credibility in what I say. So especially since I've talked a lot about politics and I've trying to get after fake news from either side, but I haven't invested that much time putting it in the form of podcast. And since that was my initial goal, when I want to get my point across or when I want to show something or prove something, obviously I'm not going to I guess it's going to be a more serious side of mine. But there's been definitely a lack of enthusiasm when I'm speaking. And the reason is because I'm trying to sound more professional, more credible. And that's why in the beginning, the first few podcasts that I've done, they were actually longer. And I provided, little videos which shows graphs. And because anything that I want to say or anything that I'm going to say, I could prove it. I'm not just going to say something that I heard from the media, from social media, from any left or right wing pundits. If I'm going to debunk you, it's going to be with proof, with facts, not alternate facts, real facts. And so I feel like I haven't been myself, kind of. I have not been myself. I've been trying maybe a little bit too hard. I haven't found my groove where I could really shine, I guess you could say. I'm excited about eventually doing a sit down with somebody. I've had a couple of people that have told me, and that's in the works, but it's been hard, like I said before, and I've said it probably too many times, unless you haven't listened to it, that it's been hard to find the time. I'm a father, and I have two little kids. I have a third one on the way. There's my cat again. And sometimes when I want to sit down, I'm also more of a gamer. So I play video games. I primarily play Smash Brothers online. That's something that could distract my mind for a few minutes. And so the time that I started that I would invest in that, I thought, okay, well, instead, then I'll invest it in the podcast. Then that became my only time to go to the gym. So I realized I was not going to the gym because the moments that I had for myself was to spend time on this podcast or editing the videos. It takes a while to upload the videos. I think I need a better computer for sure. And that's been the thing. I thought, like, well, with the equipment that I have enough to make it look like a professional, maybe a bit of a professional podcast. But honestly, I have an all-in-one computer, which, if you know, very limited in how you could grow them. I have this mic with, it does the job, but it's not a real podcast mic. These are Sony, but they were cheap. I have the webcam, not the integrated one from the computer, because that one's worse. But I don't really have anything professional to do a professional podcast. And I thought And that's what's been hindering me being able to sit down with someone and talk. So I think I wanted to start off episode 1 or 2 and start counting them on whenever I do my first sit down with somebody where we could share thoughts and ideas. When I've looked back at some of the podcasts that I did in the beginning, I will definitely edit the crap out of those podcasts and make them a lot shorter and just cut straight to the point. Because it just dragged. It just dragged so much that I don't blame anybody that didn't really listen to throughout any of my podcasts prior to this point. But it all goes back to the same thing, to the same reason, the same motive behind doing a podcast was seeing everybody honestly just get suckered in with whatever they see and hear because it suits them. And unfortunately, I feel like politics has crept its way into our households, into our lives. So hats off to all you who keep away from it and don't engage in it. But it is vital to our lives or to our children's and other generations to come. And one thing I've been seeing, there's been a lot going on this year. There's been a lot. I could have, if I would have had been doing this full time, I think I would have been streaming on Twitch live, having live reactions to press conferences, rallies. I would have been able to cover all those things. But, I have a full-time job, so I'm not able to do that. But what I've been seeing from the left and the right, it's embarrassing. It's not where I think professionals or leaders are supposed to go to. For instance, right now, the vice president that was chosen on the Democratic side, Tim Walz, they're attacking him from all these weird ways. It's just really strange how you would attack someone that served a veteran for 24 years when the ones attacking him are supporting somebody who dodged the draft. So that doesn't make sense to me. And the vice president, J.D. Vance, he served for 5 years, so hats off to him. Neither J.D. Vance or Tim Walz, neither of the vice presidents served in combat. But Tim Walz has 24 years to Vance's 5 years. So the fact that Vance and his people are trying to demean his service, like no one that served even 1 year should be put down, should be ridiculed or mocked or, make it seem like they didn't do enough. They served the country. That says a lot. Just to enlist and to go through the whole process, it's a grueling process. So the fact that they're attacking each other there for serving the country, it's completely ridiculous. And seeing that, I'm like, man, where are we going? What else are we gonna attack next? Is just pull up pictures of each other's kids. Oh, look at his kid, how ugly he is. He looks Indian, or she looks black, or I just don't see that. Seeing the direction where we're going with all this it's the reason why it's hard to be flying an American flag and wow, look at us. Like, I think I see us as a clown show, and it's like a circus show to other countries. This is the way I see it. And the fact is that people listen to whatever the politicians want them to believe. For instance, they're attacking Tim Walz, the vice president on the Democratic side, because he's pro-choice. Dude, at this point, every single Democrat is going to be pro-choice, and every single Republican is going to be pro-life, or how I like to say it, pro-birth. Like, that shouldn't be like, oh my God, he's in favor of a woman having the right to choose an abortion. No, duh, that's going to happen with every candidate, like, from now on. So the fact that people are like shocked, oh my God, he's in favor of it. There's a difference when you're in favor of someone choosing between the family and the doctor, and that doesn't mean that you're hoping and you're cheering on for an abortion to take place. That doesn't mean people want an abortion to take place. It means that under certain circumstances, someone has the right to choose, and that someone shouldn't be a politician or the government. All these laws about a woman's body are made by men that would never know what it is to feel like to be pregnant. That's the part to me that's never made sense. In that case, why shouldn't that be decided by only females, right? Shouldn't only females decide on what happens on abortion, since females are the only ones that go through that? That's my guess hot take on that. And as for the left side, it's a party of science, right? Democrats, party of science. Okay, what does the science tells us? Tells us there are two genders, and then they went off to change it to be, gender is a spectrum. It's what you identify as. Like, if you could change that, you can't change the science to it. It's a male and a female. Calling that out doesn't mean we're against, we hate everybody has their own gender identity. It doesn't mean that. It just means we're calling out the facts. Just because someone wants to be called a man and they were born a female, it doesn't mean it's true. There's a snippet of that I'm just remembering right now that I wish I could play, but I'm not going to go through that to play it. So those are just some points that I'm looking at, and I think like everyone's been just like taken away by this wave of like hysteria. Like, we reached a peak of not researching anything, not thinking for yourself, just whatever this party yells at, whatever they yell, that's what you also gonna yell. You're like the speaker. They're the ones behind the microphone, and you're just a speaker that's repeating everything that they want you to say. And then a lot of these people call themselves free thinkers. How are you a free thinker if you all sound the same? You all parrot the same thing. The people that I've come across that tell me about, how could you, if you're so religious, how could you be in a party that supports trans and the party that supports abortion? It's like, that's not the only thing that's on that ticket. That's not the only thing. That's not the biggest danger to society. That's not the biggest danger to my kids. I'm worried about my kids' health. I'm worried about them having access to, to health, to education, to not have to worry about getting shot up in school. I'm worried about those kind of things. So whenever someone tells me, I wish you could just, you really can't see things right now, or the media really has you, like, just because I'm not thinking on your opinion doesn't mean the media got me, And politics have become so divisive. I'm sure I'm not the only one that's lost like some kind of friendships or being so close to a family member. Not because I pushed them out, because they saw me as something else. They saw me like the enemy. They saw me as evil, because politics has become not just a party that you decide to vote for. Now it became an identity, like a trend. Like, I'm Republican, so I have to wear boots now. I have to listen to country. I have to wear the American flag everywhere. Or you're a Democrat, you have to. Actually, I don't know too much about what signals out a Democrat, but according to the right, they're all liberals, so they all have some kind of pink or blue hair with earrings and tattoos. I think that's how they always classify a Democrat. But we know that's not all Democrats. That's certain liberals, and they have the right to dress the way they want to. So enough about that and politics. I could go on and on. And if you've managed to hear up to this point, hats off to you, and thanks for tuning in. Hopefully somebody could leave a like or a comment, because I want to get feedback. That's how I respond. That's how I feel I do good at, being able to respond to somebody, being able to respond to criticism, to respond to questions, to respond to attacks. Not that I want to get attacked, of course. That's what Facebook is for, right? But I was thinking about the podcast, and before I started it, I looked up some tips, and one of the things that it said that stuck out to me was you have to find your crowd, you have to find your topic or your area, I guess, and stick to that. And then right away I thought, well, that's going to be a problem because even the title in itself is completely contrary to that. It's anything goes, so it could be a lot of subjects, a lot of topics. And I thought, well, I'll separate them in groups. When I talk about sports, it'll be a category. Like if you click on my YouTube page, there's anything goes sports, anything goes gaming, even though I kind of stopped putting stuff in there. And then just the anything goes podcast, which is this one. So that might be a problem. So I was thinking of doing like some kind of poll. I think it would probably be better on Instagram when you do the polls on the story to see what topics people would rather hear about. So that's what I want to hear. I thought that by making as many videos as I've done now, I thought I would get some kind of feedback, but honestly, I have not got feedback. I don't blame anybody but myself because I have not produced enough content that makes it, worthy of people's time. And I get that. I understand that. I own that. But I would like to know an area of topic, whatever I tried to say there. So another thing with this podcast, I stumbled upon a podcast before I started this one, and right away I thought, man, someone took that idea before me. It's called Death Podcast, and they pretty much just talk about horrific tragedies and death, or people call in and he does interviews with people who have been close to death or know a thing or two about death. And not that I want to talk about death, but I feel like I've been somebody way more than the average person that has always thought about death. And it's a fact. It's a fact that I'm going to die. You're going to die. We're all going to die. And that, it scares me. I'm not scared to go to hell because I know I'm not going to hell. I've thought of heaven. Heaven does scare me in the human sense because our mind can't perceive how heaven's going to be. But I just know I'm going to be there. That's what scares me, that I know I'm going to see it someday. But not like a scared, like if I don't want it, it's just like somewhat of an excitement. But in this podcast, like they talk a lot about tragedies, about death. They had a hospice nurse talk, and there's something that, just to point out, I'm not going to talk about this whole death thing, right? I wanted to keep this video 10 minutes. I'm already going on to 20 minutes. One thing that really stood out, there was this hospice nurse that one thing they realized, a person before they would die, days or a day or even hours before they die, they always say that they talk to a deceased loved one. So for instance, this lady, she says she saw her cousin, and her cousin came and they talked. So the nurse is like, okay, where's your cousin at? Oh, she died, 10 years ago or something. But that was always a constant, that they see and talk to relatives or loved ones that have died a long time ago. I don't know what that means. That's pretty creepy. You could kind of take it like, their soul or their ghosts come to make contact with them. And another thing that's been a common denominator of people that are before they die is that they get a sudden surge of energy. Someone who hasn't been able to get out of bed for months, all of a sudden they're able to get up, they're able to walk around and look completely normal, where the nurses get surprised and shocked, and before, I think they thought it was like, oh, they're doing good, but now they realize that that's kind of like their last surge before they pass away, and they can't explain it. Doctors can't explain it, or scientists or whatnot. What is this that the body does, or the brain, or how does it know that, they're pretty much going to die at any moment now? Where they get where and why does that resurgence of life come from? Where they're able to do stuff physically that they hadn't been able to do in weeks, months, or possibly even years. So that's a trippy part in itself. And seeing that podcast, I've always talked about death. I've always talked about having that in the back of my mind always made me feel like you have to be cautious of what you do, not hold any grudges, never, never go too long without talking to somebody or checking up on them. The number one fear for me now, more than anything, is not being there for my kids. Them growing up without a father. Like, you have no idea how much I can't fathom the thought of my daughter, of Elizabeth, living here on this earth without me. The fact that she might be able to get a job or a career or be nervous for an interview, and I won't be there to be able to talk to her or help her out, or I'll be gone before she gets married. Those are the thoughts that scare me to death. No pun intended. So yeah, that's a pretty interesting podcast. I only saw a few episodes because it's pretty difficult to watch, especially if you don't like talking about that subject. But the ones that I saw that were pretty interesting. So that's just what's been on my mind. I'm not gonna make any promises about what this podcast, what this my little channel, or whatever you want to call it, or whatever it is called, what I'm gonna do with it, how it's gonna look, or if it's ever gonna, take off to the point where I could advertise small businesses for our community, for our self-consumption. That's a thought, that's an idea that I've had, that I could be some kind of a means to, to pretty much market their business to other people, to other churches, to other parts of our community, and just to have and also to have come to a point to talk about subjects that have to do with faith, with God, and have more people on here. I never wanted it to be all politics. I've been somebody that's very much into social behavior, the human mind, how people act. I took a lot of psychology courses, and I feel like there's a lot that I learned that I could share. I don't know how enthusiastic people would be about hearing that, but definitely I would be a lot better with somebody else. I need to argue with somebody else. I need to not just talk to myself and assume someone's going to hear it. I have to talk to the camera here, assuming someone's going to hear it. What if no one hears it? It's been over 20 minutes. How do I know anybody is going to listen to it this long? I don't know. Maybe. But if you do, kudos to you. Like the video. It'll help me. It'll help it go more in YouTube, I think. Like it or comment, share it, whatever. So we'll see what topics I'm able to do. I don't want to be just a political commentator. I do usually want to present proof on whatever I say. Like, for instance, right now everything's about crime is so bad, it's like the worst, right? And crime has been going down for like 2 or 3 years. And one thing that I noticed, I did this in a video that I showed the graph of crime, and you could categorize the types of crime. And rape went up during Trump's term. So I'm pointing that out, or I pointed that out in a video that I'm sure like maybe 1% saw. I pointed that out, but I wouldn't say that without showing proof. Like if I was to say that now, like, oh, crime was worse under his watch. Anybody could say that. Just because you say it doesn't mean it's true. So my mindset was always, oh, provide proof. You can't deny me if I have the proof or if it's facts. I'm coming at you with facts. So I want people to come after me with facts. I want people to prove me wrong in what I'm saying. Unfortunately, a lot of this comes down to what you believe in, what's more important for you. A lot of it comes down to common sense. Like, you could tell when someone's lying, or you could tell that that's not true, or do a little bit of research. What they're saying is not true. A lot of it comes down to common sense, and that is something that's lacking not only in our society but in the whole world. We need more of that common sense. But I'm gonna wrap it up. That's pretty much it. Just wanted to come out here and talk and say things that were on my mind regarding the podcast in case anybody listens to it. So I could try to get more comfortable doing this. I plan to, moving forward from this video on, I plan to invest more time into it. And doing it on Instagram and getting short clips and posting them, it's time consuming. It literally took me more than an hour to do a reel that was a minute and something to correct the video and trim it one way and trim it so I say this and then this part comes out. It's time consuming, but I'm gonna put more time into it. I'm gonna be in Hawaii next week. I have a brother-in-law there that hopefully we're able to get something out there to see the mine. It'll be interesting. Well, yeah, till next time. Peace out.